Model Making Guru is sponsored by emodels.co.uk, your one-stop shop for all your model making needs. emodels.co.uk. Make something awesome. Hey everyone, it's Foxx from Model Making Guru here. Hello and welcome to a new little occasional series I'm calling Partwork Roundup. Now, as you know, I'm working my way through the Partwork from Hachette, the Warhammer Conquest monthly build-up of 2 Warhammer armies, and I'm loving every minute of it. But it occurred to me the other day that not all of you out there may be familiar with Partworks. You might be the first time you've even heard of a Partwork, and there's tons of them out there. Now, we all like different things, and I figured it might be an idea to occasionally take a look at some new model-based Partwork series that come out on different subjects. Something might tickle your fancy. You might not like Warhammer, but you might like something else, and there might be a Partwork out there that you might quite like. Now, I'm not planning any new Partwork builds myself. I haven't got time, space or money to do that. But what I'm going to do occasionally is take a look at first issues so that you're aware of the different things that are available to you. So to that end, to start with, I've been having a conversation with the guys at Hachette, and what they've done, they very kindly sent me a couple of first issues for 2 of their newest released builds. So let's have a look at those now and see what they are. Okay, so the first one we're going to look at, you've probably seen people posting up videos in the last couple of days. It's a new build series, and it's the T-800 Endoskeleton Build the Terminator. It's a 1/2 size T-800 you build up over a number of issues. So we're going to have a look at that. And today they've also sent me the first issue of the Bismarck, a 1/200 scale, which is massive model of the Bismarck. So I'll go and get these ready. We'll take all the packaging off because it's far too big for telecameras. We'll have a look at the magazines and the bits that come with them. I think we can assemble the first few bits for the Terminator. Don't know how much we can assemble on this, but we'll find out. Back in a moment. Okay, we'll take a look at the Bismarck first, this big bad boy. Now in this, you get the first issue, you get 2 magazines, the instructions and the history, and also a bit of a what's coming up in the next 139 issues. There are 140 issues of this series. You get some promotional information about what happens if you subscribe, and you get some really nice little treats if you subscribe, and you also get your first few parts, and we'll go through those in a moment. Let's have a look at the magazines first. We'll take a look at the little promotional one first, which just gives you an idea of what to expect. The first thing you notice is that this model is going to be 125.2 centimeters long. It's going to be huge. Also, the hull is die-cast metal. So what I would say, if you're looking at getting into this one, make sure you've got a really big shelf that can take a lot of weight. Don't just dangle it on some feeble bit of plywood with a couple of screws holding it in place, because it'll just fall off the wall. And that's not what you want when you spent 140 issues building this thing. So you're going to need a heavy shelf, but it's going to be massive, 125 centimeters. The magazine also lists lots of the features that you're going to see on this model. You're going to have anchors that can be raised and lowered. The 38 centimeter gun turrets, they can rotate and you can traverse the barrels up and down. That looks quite cool. You've also got some movement on the radar on the control tower. They can rotate at the touch of a button. You've also got lighting on the Admiral's Bridge and searchlights and navigation lights all over the ship. You've also got the 6 15 centimeter guns, which can also be turned by remote control. Also includes, it says here, a removable panel so that you can see the construction inside. That looks really mint, I like that. And there's lots of detail all over this. It does come with all the rigging and wires and antennas and everything else that you're going to need to make this whole model. Also gives you some information about the series itself. It's going to give you the history of the boats. It's going to give you a step-by-step guide to build it. And it looks mint. And it gives you an idea of what comes up in the next issue. So we'll talk about that in a moment. Next up, we have the actual instructions and history magazine, the bit that you're actually going to connect issue on issue. Now, unlike the Warhammer one, instead of having just hole punch holes and it all coming apart, this has got some very nice metal clasps here that are going to go into a box file thing that you can collect all these into. So I like that. I really like that. It's not designed to fall apart like the Warhammer one, which, yeah, it kind of falls apart a bit. Anyway, what have we got in here? This is, of course, going to give you the instructions for assembling all the parts that you've received in the issue, and we'll do that in a moment. We're basically sticking things on the front of the decking. It also gives you some ideas about tools. It's got some quite handy information about tools that you might need and where you're going to work and what you're probably going to have to get or need to build this kit. And then it goes into all the history of the ship itself. And I'm going to guess this is going to go on for issue after issue. I don't know how, it always amazes me with these Partworks. They've got 140 issues to put in all this information about one ship. I don't know how they're going to do. I don't know how they're going to get 140 issues out. They probably won't. They'll probably talk about, you know, the Kriegsmarine and World War II naval battles and things as well. But it always amazes me how they managed to stretch these things out for so many issues. There are 140 issues in this build series, so yeah, it's a lot of information they've got to do. And lastly, as with any subscription Partwork, you get bonuses for subscribing. You get a little card if you want to give it to your newsagent, and you can subscribe that way. It's quite tweet that people still do that, especially in this day and age of the internet. Or, like most people, you can subscribe online. It is battleshipbismarck.co.uk. You do get various treats for subscribing, and this is the same with any Partwork. Just keep in mind, I've not been paid to do this. This isn't a paid promotion. I've just been sent these. But any Partwork, there are freebies you get. If you subscribe, you get issue 2 and you get issue 3 free of charge, and you also get a cutting mat. They say it's worth $5.99. So you get issue 3 free, you get the cutting mat, which is quite nice, and then you get some other gifts as well. Later on you will get a free binder, same as with the Warhammer. After the 3rd delivery you get a binder which is going to work on these little metal things here. It's going to be very nice. You also get, and this is kind of awesome, with your 5th delivery you get an entire toolkit. You get a box cutter knife and some screwdrivers and a little drill and all bits and bobs. It says it includes tweezers, a craft knife and screwdriver heads. Well, it also includes a lot of other stuff they don't mention, but hey. And then with the 7th delivery you get a metal display plaque. So you do get some bonuses for subscribing. So as with any subscription Partwork, it's always worth having to think about that. Okay, so let's get the assembling done for this issue. Now I think, looking at this and comparing it to the Terminator one, this is going to be more of a traditional build. I think you're going to have a lot more traditional skills and techniques in this build, so just keep that in mind. It's going to be more of a proper shipbuilding build, I think. The glue I'm going to be using is just super glue. It does say to use super glue. I don't know what plastic is used in this. It could be ABS, it could be polystyrene. I don't know if using your Tamiya extra thin will work. If it's not polystyrene, it won't. So I've got some super glue on a little bit here, and I've got a cocktail stick ready. The first bit is we need to make the warping winch, which sounds like something out of a Harry Potter book. But the first step is to take these 2 little black components and stick them in here. Now, these are pre-painted. When I sanded the bottom bit here, you'll see the paint came off. And there is a nub on the top. I've not bothered taking it off because I'm just doing this as an example for you, but there is a nub on the top. If you want to sand that down, you're going to have to repaint this. But it's no biggie. I would recommend anyway that you repaint the whole thing, because it's going to be a big model. And like any Partwork kit, it'll come sort of pre-coloured with some paint already on it. They've already sprayed like the outer hull, which is fine, but I know that you could do a billion times better. Like with any pre-painted model, the pre-painted bit is always, it's nice for those who can't paint, those who haven't got any skills at all, never experienced painting. It's fine for them. But if you're like, you know, like me, you're a proper model maker and you take pride in your painting and your building, then yeah, you're going to want to repaint this puppy, and that should be fairly easy because this thing is massive. It's a big build, it's a big kit. So I'll get a bit more super glue just on the inside there. Now you can apply this with any method you want really, but cocktail stick's quite a nice way to get a precise bit of glue. That should hold it. If you prefer, you can use epoxy glue. It'll give you a more permanent and stable fix than CA glue, like super glue. But this should be fine. For this demonstration, it's absolutely fine. That's the first step. What's next? Okay, next up we have to glue these 2 parts together. You can hardly see on camera. It's the capstan, or rather the capstan head, and a lower part of the capstan. Now, I will warn you, when you get the packaging, these 2 are loose in the packaging. They've got a little recessed area in the blister packaging, but when I open mine, these had fallen around and they've been moving around, so just be really careful. I thought I'd lost this little piece, but it was just floating around in the plastic packaging. So open your plastic packaging careful. When you get it, just visually check where these 2 parts are. They're not on a sprue, everything else is. They're just loose. So find where these 2 parts are first before you get everything else out, and open the packaging and make sure you haven't lost them. Now this should be fairly straightforward. This is where it gets tricky. Tricky for me to film because it's so tiny. So I'm going to get my little cocking tail stick and a little bit of the gluings. And we're going to just get a little touch of glue on there, just a tiny amount. And we're going to plonk that on there like that. We're going to drop it first. That's what we're going to do first. Plonk it on there. Squish it down, and there we go. That is now on my finger, if nothing else. Stuck my finger together. Yeah, there we go. Stuck my finger together. Fantastic. So there we go. Capstan head on the caps. Now it says in the book you put this to one side now because you don't attach this to anything else. That's going to be a later issue where you need to do that, so we'll put that to one side. Next up, we need to start attaching the bollards, housings and hatches to this piece of deck. Now I will say this deck looks really nice, but I'm going to counter something that people often say about Partworks, especially when it's things like aircraft and ships and things like that. They often say, well, they look a bit, the paint job's a bit flat, it's not very interesting, because you get them pre-painted, like I said. This is fine. The majority of people who are going to be making this are going to have some experience with building and painting. It can be built by a beginner, but the majority of people buying a 3 foot long, or however long this is, 125 centimetre long model of the Bismarck are probably going to know what they're doing when it comes to building a ship. The fun of these things is you can just build them and leave them as they are pre-painted. There's no problem with that. It's a bit like the D'Agostini Millennium Falcon. You could build it as it comes. It's pre-painted. It looks all right. However, if you know how to paint and you know how to weather, part of the fun is repainting this. But I actually think this wooden decking looks quite nice. If you're looking for a museum clean quality finish, that looks pretty nice. However, if you know how to do a bit of painting and weathering, you could vastly improve that and do a lot of work. So don't be put off by a simple paint job. Repainting is half the fun of these things. Anyway, we need to stick these bits on. So first of all, we're going to take the warping winch. We're going to apply that. So a little bit of the super glues again. I've got my little tweezers. I have to thank my very, very good friend Kenneth in Australia, Land. Who got me these tweezers. They are beautiful. I didn't realise until afterwards they are God Hands tweezers, which is fantastic. I'm just going to get some glue on, and I'm going to put quite a fair bit of glue in there. It doesn't really matter. I don't have to be too neat here. So we can just splong this down into this hole, little hole, and splong it onto there. There we go. And that should settle in there quite nicely. Have I got that the right way around? Yes, there we go. I'll put some extra glue just under here. Now, like I said, I don't know if this is ABS or polystyrene or what plastic this is. If it was a normal model kit, I would assume it's polystyrene, and I would just use my normal Tamiya extra thin. But because the instructions specify super glue, or if you want something a bit better, use epoxy glue. Because it specifies super glue, I can only assume perhaps it's something like ABS, and therefore polystyrene cement like Tamiya extra thin just won't work. Right, so that's the, what was it called, the warping winch. That's now glued in. We then have to add the housings into the rectangular openings. So we have two openings, where do they go? Here and here. So we have two little housings. Let's find those. It's just unfortunate that all the parts I need to show you are really, really small. So again, we have these little tiny parts here, little tiny housings. One small housing. And what I'm going to try and do is pick these up with the tweezers. Mit der Tweezern gefahren. Now I don't think these grey parts are pre-painted. I think they're just grey plastic. But the dark grey parts are pre-painted. So like I said, when you're sanding there, just be careful. A touch of super glue on there. Am I doing this on camera? Yes. And we're just going to slot it into the little hole. In you go, ka-chink, like that. Slot it down, and there you go. Now if you want to, you can put a bit more glue on the back if you want to just reinforce it. The reason that I was saying that epoxy glue is maybe sometimes better than cyanoacrylate or super glue. Super glue sticks like Billy-O. The downside of super glue is it also shatters very, very easily. It's got a nice grip strength. It doesn't have much tensile strength. So it's not, if you drop something that's attached or built together with super glue, it can shatter and fall apart because the glue just shatters. So keep that in mind. Now we have to glue on two bollards. I like the word bollard, which is there and there. These two little holes here. Now I have taken the time out to remove the nubs off these bollards because these are just grey plastic and not, I'm aware, painted. If I can just pour them out here, let's just do that. There we go. So I have taken the little nubs off these bollards. That's fine, that's no problem. And they're big enough to handle, so I can simply do the gluing. Splooge. Again, you don't need a lot, just a touch. Enough to get in the little hole. Ooh, and then miss completely. Where is it? There it is. So now we have the two bollards on the port side. I'm trying very carefully not to get super glue on my beautiful, beautiful cutting mat. So 2 on the port side. So let's get these 2 done. Exactly the same process. Get your glue. Touch of glue on the bottom of the bollard. I'll put this on camera. And just get it in though. Okay, now what you might find is these 2 forward ones, the ones at the front, they may be a little tight, a bit stiff to go in. They might stick up a little bit. Don't panic, just like I did there, just push them in quite firmly and they will snap into place. They're just a little bit tight compared to the other one. So 2 more, exactly the same again. A little bit of glue, stab yourself with the tweezers, which is always a winning combination. Do it on camera, of course, as well, which is also always a winning combination. And last of all, we have 2 little hatches. Now you have to pay attention with these hatches. You have 2 hatches, different sizes, and they have a hinge or 2 hinges on one end, and that corresponds to the little holes here on the recess. So make sure you get the hinge in the right place. And dead simple. Get some more super glue. I'm using a thick super glue for this, by the way. I do recommend a thicker super glue, purely because a thick super glue gives you more time to move the piece around. It sets a little bit slower and it's less likely to go everywhere. So we'll just try and get that in. It can just go into the hole there. You can see the little 2 hinges, they just sit at the back end, so you know you've got them in the right place. And there's one here. I think that's where that one goes. Yes. So yes, I do recommend the thick super glue. You can use thin super glue, but it sets very fast. The thing with super glue is it sets very fast regardless. Whoever you are, whatever super glue you are using, it always sets fast. So you want to give yourself a little bit of working time just to maneuver things around a little bit. So use a slightly thicker one if you need to. Slot that in there. There we go. So there we go. That's the build portion for this first issue done. That's all we've got done so far. So you can see now the kind of size you're looking at. That's the pointy bit on the front, and it fills the entire screen. Look, it's as big as this telly screen that you're watching it on. So there you go, nice and simple. Now I expect it will get more complicated as time goes on, because you've got things like the antenna wires and rigging and everything else to do, and all the complicated bits. It's always nice to start gentle. Anyway, it's time now to move on to the Terminator. Ooh. So yes, let's move on to the one you've actually been wanting to watch, the T-800 Partwork. This is 120 issues, and in this 120 issue Partwork, you will build a 1/2 size, so almost a metre tall, T-800 Terminator. Yes, it says build an exclusive model of the T-800 endoskeleton from the original Terminator movie, whose one mission was to kill Sarah Connor. Get to the chat, that's the wrong movie. I did the wrong movie, never mind. So it looks like it's going to be quite a good series. It's 20 less than the Bismarck, because not quite as good, big and complicated as the Bismarck build, I don't think. It's a mostly metal construction, it would seem. All the bits that are supposed to be metal are metal. It says the height is almost 1 metre, its material is high quality zinc alloy and ABS parts, and the bass plays the iconic Terminator theme tune. So it looks like it's going to be quite a mega build. I'd be quite interested in this, but I haven't got the size, space, or, you know, time. Quite a few features on this build. Now I have to say, they have kind of chosen the most boring pose in the world. It's just standing there like it's waiting for a bus or having a fitting from a tailor or something. It's like you could have given it a more dynamic pose. It is actually, you can pose it around. It's not going to stand like that. I'm assuming you can do other things with it, but they could have made it look a bit more action oriented. But you get a remote control with it, and you can move the jaw open and closed. It's got moving articulations. The T-800 is articulated and can assume different positions. Just don't pose it like that. Oh, sound effects. The base does give you sound effects and the iconic Terminator theme tune. Red and blue lights will illuminate and showcase the intricate details of the T-800. And the T-800's eyes light up in an intense red colour and move from right to left. Or is it left to right? How do you know which one it is? Now, just like with the Bismarck, of course, you're going to get a magazine each time, and you're going to get lore and history on the Terminator franchise and instructions on how to build the Terminator that you are building. Also, don't forget, they're going to have to pad it out with something. They can't just give you 120 magazines about the movies. There's not that much to talk about. So they're going to give you information on cinema as well, and legends of the cinema. So I presume they're going to look at how Terminator franchise influenced a lot of modern day sci-fi, and also they're going to discuss real world science. They're going to look at things like AI and that kind of stuff. It's all kind of interesting information. And then of course on the back you get a list of the treats that you get if you subscribed, and we'll have a look at those in a second. Of course, the other magazine is the How to Build This Thing magazine, and that has some nice information. We've got a little bit of blurb about the T-800. You can see it there with the big ass gun. This is the studio model. Should be telling you, this is the studio model I keep showing you on the cover. So that's what you can aim towards. You've got blurb on the movie franchise itself, so you're going to have little sort of sections at the start about the film itself. You're going to have your instructions, how to build it. Probably, I would guess, not a lot of real model makey gluey stuff in this. I think this is going to be mostly a mechanical build, a bit like the R2 build and things like that. Mostly, I think, mechanical rather than model makey skills. And that's what we're going to be doing in a bit. And then at the back, we've got a little bit about modern day AI. So that's quite nice. That's about artificial intelligence and photography. That's quite interesting. So we have the magazine. That's going to change each month, obviously. Now, like the Bismarck, you get these nice little metal widgets on the end. I much prefer this to the ones you get in the Warhammer thing. But then again, the Warhammer one, you've got to put different pages in different sections. These are just going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you don't need to spread all the pages out, really. So it kind of makes sense. It's a shame, though. The Warhammer one is nice, but you have to take it apart. It's a bit of a pain. Last of all, as always, you get the little bits for the subscription blurb. You get the little postcard to give to your newsagent if you want to subscribe, which is so adorable. I can't believe people still do that. And then you get a little brochure that tells you what you receive if you do subscribe, either through that way or online at buildtheterminator.com. Buildtheterminator.com. Get to the website. I'll stop doing that. I do apologise. As with the Bismarck, you get some freebies if you're a subscriber. With your first delivery with issue 2, you get issue 3 free, and you also get a screwdriver set worth $5.99. Strangely enough, exactly the same value as the cutting mat. $5.99, little set of screwdrivers which you're going to need to build this. I think this is mostly going to be screwdriver jobbies on this build. Then with your third delivery, you get the very nice hardcover binder, which you're going to need anyway to keep all the magazines in, kind of standard for any part work. With your fifth delivery, you get this key ring, rather nice key ring. It doesn't really work for me, that's not to my taste, but you know, you might like it. But then the most important, with your seventh delivery, if you're a subscriber, you get the 1/2 size replica weapon for the T-800. It's going to hold it in its hand. Kind of, if you're building a Terminator, you kind of want it to be holding the weapon anyway. So it's a shame you only get this if you're a subscriber. You don't get this if you don't subscribe. So if you really want it to have a gun, probably want to do the subscribing. Okay, so let's crack on with the building for this issue, this first issue of the build. Now, look at that. That's just nice. That proper metal. It's proper metal. Now, I would say, obviously, you look at this, and it's not quite the shiny chrome that you're used to seeing on a T-800. I know, you're not going to get chrome plated for a part work, but it looks pretty nice. And I suppose theoretically, I'm not a big expert on metal, but I'm pretty sure you could, if you wanted to, in one way or another, polish the crap out of that and get it looking nice and reflective and shiny. It's probably not that hard if you know what you're doing. So we got that, but we're not apparently going to use that, so we'll put that to one side. What we need to build today is the Wibbly-Wobbly Eyes, so let's get that done. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is put these red eye caps into the chrome plated ocular orbits. They're called ocular orbits, and they just push in like that. There's no biggie, that's not that hard. They're not staying in. Well, yes they are, yes they are. I thought they were going to fall out again, but no, they're in, and that also wasn't on screen. So we're just pushing these into there like that. That was not complicated. Lovely, lovely. What's next? Okay, next we have to certificate the LEDs. So on each of these you've got the little connector at one end and the LED itself at the other, and we just need to slide these in. Now it does suggest you do these a specific way. You have to have the 2 pins at the bottom and the 1 pin at the top. It says take care as you gently insert these LEDs. Arrange the wires as shown, so the black needs to be on the top and the red on the bottom, and you need to have the pins like that. So what you're doing is get that in there and then push it from the bulb, not from the wire. Push it from the bulb as hard as you can whilst also being gentle, and that is now in. You can't put a lot of pressure on there, it doesn't have to go all the way in, It does stick out a little bit, it seems. But there's not much more pushing I can do on that. Oh, there you go, that's in. Lovely. So just go carefully, make sure the black wire's on the top and the little single pin is at the top, and you get both of these done. Okay, now just a point to note here, although it doesn't say anything in this section here, it says you have to have the black on the top and the red on the bottom, and then the one pin at the top and the two pins on the bottom. However, later on it shows you, on the next step, it shows you two pins on the bottom, two pins on the bottom, black on the bottom, black on the top. So it doesn't say anything about that, but I've done it in the same way. So on here I've got the black on the bottom where the two pins are, and this one I've got black on the top where the one pin is. I just pulled it out and put it back in again. It was sticking out a bit, so it wasn't too hard to do that. So just double check you've got that right when you do that. I don't know why it doesn't mention that, but there you go. Next step is to get these inserted into the face holes. Two pins on the top, these two longer pins go into these two notches here, like that. Now I find it easier, or I tried it a couple of times, and I found it easier to put this in place first, this bracket on the back, just to hold that in place, and then slot the other eye in, sort of, because it's not quite going to stay in place by itself. And push that forward, make sure the eye is locked into the little notches. There we go. That's in, that's in. So this bracket stops the eye coming. If you just put the two eyes in first, they'll just fall out each time. They don't stay in place. Googly eyes. Okay, so the next step now is to screw that in place. And for this we have 3 little tiny screws provided. Now I'm going to have to do something ironic here. The only screwdriver I've got that fits is this one. And you might recognise this as the one that came with my DeAgostini build, the Millennium Falcon. Yeah, I know. Sorry everyone. Is it magnetic? I can't remember now. See if I can pick up the screw. It's totally not magnetic. Okay, so we have to screw this in. So 2 little screws, one there. If I can do it with my fat fingers. Oh, hang on. This is where it would be helpful if it was a magnetic screwdriver, but never mind. Oh, this could be interesting. Could be here for a while. Stay tuned. They're not pointy screwdrivers. I mean, they're not pointy screws. They're not self-tapping. So you've got to get it in, and then give it a little twizzle, and then screw it in. Dee-dee-dee. And this is. Yes, so don't tighten them like one all the way and then go and do the other one. You don't want to break anything or snap anything. So get them almost tight and then just adjust them step by step. This is not exactly the right size screwdriver, but it's the closest I've got, and it will do for the purposes of this demonstration. There we go. So that's those in. So now we have googly eyes. Get to the chopper. It's not a tumor. It's not a tumor. Okay, so that's that bit. Now, do we have to put the little cross brace in? I'm going to assume this piece sits between them like this and acts as like a servo arm. Go on, there we go. Yeah, so you get the idea there. Then the eyes can actually move in unison. And then I assume, obviously, well, I don't assume, it's fairly obvious that once you've done that, at some point this will now attach. You don't do it now, but this will later on attach into there and be attached with other things. There's probably other things that go on in there. And then that gives you the eyes. Now they're a bit low down, but that's because there's probably other components in there that I haven't even put in yet. So who can say which way up that's supposed to go? Maybe it's that way. Oh, there you go. Because it's that way, that's why. So now you've got a slightly gormless looking. Yeah, I know where you are. I can see you on both corners. Yeah. Slightly gormless looking because his eyes aren't lined up. Let's line his eyes up. Let's put him out of his misery. If I can get this on again. There we go. I see all the things. I see them over there. I see them over there. Yeah. That's cool. I like that. That's awesome. Now, it's not a lot to do in the first issue, but it is just the first issue. So you've got some bits left over. And like with any part work, there'll be lots of things that you don't do till later on. So, awesome. That's looking quite good. I like that. So yeah, you could do a lot with that metal. You could polish it up quite nicely and get it all chromy. I wouldn't expect it all to be chrome plated for the purposes of part work, for the amount you're spending, but that's really nice. It's all solid metal. So that is that. So there you have it, 2 new Partworks that might just tickle your fancy. Now remember, like I said, these videos are not reviews. I'm not making any qualitative assessments on these magazines or these Partworks in this or any future Partwork videos. I'm just bringing to your attention these Partworks that might float your boat and that you might not have known about. As I see more interesting ones pop up on store shelves, or if I receive more to preview, I'll give you a shout and let you know, because you never know, you might see something that makes you think, oh, I quite fancy that. It is nice to see these actually stepping out into the modern generation. There's a kind of a perception with younger builders that Partworks are like dusty older retirees making sailing ships out of wood in 200 issues, and that's kind of how they've always seen them. But these guys are now doing more Partworks based on modern pop culture subjects, and I like that because it's getting that younger generation of builders. It'll be interesting to see what comes up in the future. I'm kind of hoping more Warhammer obs. Yeah, we'll see. Anyway, that's going to do us. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget, of course, if you want to help support this channel, you can do. Pop along to patreon.com/modelmakingguru. My patrons help keep this channel going. They keep me supported, and that's absolutely fantastic. So thank you so much to them. If you'd like to help out, go and check it out. Don't forget, of course, you can also go and join the Model Makers Boom Hut, the Facebook group for people that like making models, and it's an awesome place. So go and join there and hang out and have a good time. You'll make a lot of new friends. Until next time, thank you so much for watching again. Take care of yourselves. Go make something awesome. Go be awesome, you there. And I'll say, adios amoebas.